Good afternoon, Miles.
Hey Vince, how you doing?
I'm doing very good. Listen, Miles, it's great to have you. So, what I'm going to do to start with is just introduce you very, very briefly. I think you and I have known each other already for almost 5 years now. You've been a certified fitness instructor for 15 years. You've had your own studio for a number of years, and your studio is not just you, but it's a team and it's growing. You've also done a lot of work on nutrition, posture, and a whole host of elements that have to do with fitness. And so I thought it'd be great to pick your brain today to try to understand, first of all, to be clear on what are the benefits of fitness, particularly as people are confined into their homes. And second, we'll go into a little bit about nutrition, and hopefully you can demo a few things for us in this video. So just to start with, Miles, and without stating the obvious, what are the benefits for leaders, people at home, stuck at home, to do some exercise at the present time?
Sure, that's a great question. I think especially for leaders, keeping your mind in check is very key and pivotal. And a healthy body equals a healthy mind. The
Right.
body and the mind are linked. So both taking care of an exercise component as well as addressing nutritional needs allow you to stay in that positive state. Um, Keeping stress down is really something that's important. Everybody's going through stress at this time, which is
Yeah.
normal and natural.
Yeah.
Welcome to being a human being under pressure.
Yeah.
But when you move your body and you breathe and you secrete certain neurochemicals as well as neurotransmitters, you regulate your brain chemistry, which keeps you in alignment on that level. Another huge thing is just the fact that you're going to have better sleep, you're going to have more energy and more stamina to get things done. For me, a leader is somebody that takes care of things, that inspires people, that makes sure that stuff is taken care of. You need to have stamina to do that, and keeping your body in check gives you the energy to be able to do so.
Great. So related to that, some basic tips, and I hear a lot about people, they're working from home, they're not doing too well on how they're eating. Some basic tips on what to keep in mind in terms of nutrition.
Great question. So from the macro level, it's keeping blood sugar regulation in check. Why? When blood sugar goes up and down, your mood is all over the place. You're more irritable. You're more sensitive to stress. And also, on the other end of the spectrum, you can start engaging in bad overeating habits, which then further precipitates stress. So in order to optimize keeping your blood sugar levels in check, it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple. Keeping lean, healthy proteins high, like chicken and fish, stuff like that, as well as keeping healthy fats up. Fats help slow down the rate of what's called gastric emptying, which is basically how fast food gets into your intestinal tract and gets into your bloodstream. So healthy fats are things like olive oil, whole, unsalted, unfried nuts and seeds, avocado, things like that. And then the third component of regulating blood sugar is fiber.
Right.
So fiber, you have soluble and insoluble, but basically if you eat your fruits and vegetables like your mother told you to do anyways, and you do so throughout the day,
Yeah.
you'll be able to get enough fiber. So those three things combined keep your blood sugar levels in check. And the last thing I would just add to that as a general kind of macro
Yeah.
concept, eating whole unprocessed foods,
Okay. So
things that
so
come from
again,
nature.
give me a few examples.
Sure, if it wasn't canned, wrapped, boxed, or packaged, in other words, it came from a farm and it's one ingredient, like an apple, rice. Those are the type of things you want to focus on.
Great. Thanks, Miles. That's super useful. Now, I wanted you, and I see that there's some equipment behind you, so I wanted to ask you, if possible, and taking this from a standpoint of somebody who probably doesn't exercise a lot, right? So I don't exercise a lot. I want to get into it, but I'm apprehensive. I don't necessarily want to do that 10-minute workout on YouTube where I'm going to be exhausted after the first minute. What are some basic exercise that people can do at home that don't require equipment that can get them on that right path?
Yeah, it's a great question. When you're starting an exercise regime and you're not somebody that has acclimatized to a routine,
Yeah.
it's all about the path of least resistance, simple stuff. I'll go through a couple of movements, 3 to 4 easy, simple movements. Before I do that, I'll just preface that by saying the squat, which I'm sure everybody has heard of,
Yeah.
and I'm sure everyone has done in some capacity, is one of the fundamental human movement patterns. We're getting in and out of our chair, getting on and off our couch, getting in and out of our car. You have to have that fundamental baseline strength.
Yeah.
Having a strong core is key. The core is what supports the whole body. It's what prevents lower back pain. And in addition to that, so many people right now are seated.
Yeah.
And if you just aren't strengthening your core, muscles are atrophying, you're going to have issues at that level. And then the third thing is really a stretch for the hips. And the reason being, we're a seated society, seated now more than ever, and the hips will tend to tighten up when chronically in a shortened position when you're seated and your hip is basically flexed.
Okay.
So I can give a little demo of that, just
Yeah.
some basics.
Yeah, that would be great. Thanks.
Perfect. It's convenient. I have a gym in my place.
No kidding, right?
Perfect. So the first movement that I'm going to take people through, I'll just adjust my camera here.
Yeah.
Excellent. So I'm going to take people through a squat,
Yes.
just go over some of the fundamental elements you want to be aware of and cognizant of. So I'll show you from the side and I'll show you from the front as well. So with a squat, actually, I'll show you from the front first. I'm basically going down into a seated position.
Right.
Your depth or range of motion will be totally dependent upon your fitness level and your strength. For some people, just doing a full squat will be a challenge.
Yeah.
In that case, what you're going to do is just focus on whatever range that you can go to. Okay, keeping the chest up, lower back arched, always having a good posture. If you're at home, it would be good if you could do this in front of a mirror to have some type of environmental feedback to know kind of where you're at, or have your partner or kids give you some feedback. Hopefully they give you useful feedback.
Right.
And then with the knees, a common mistake is the knees go inward. You want to keep them tracking over the toes. And for some people, depending on where you're at, if you're very overweight or you're a beginner, you might need to hold on to a structure or put your hand on the wall while you do the squat. So that would be a fundamental movement to start with. The next two relate to the core. So one is called a bird dog, also called a horse stance, and the other is a basic plank. So for the bird dog, very, very simple movement. Anybody can do it. I'm on my knees and hands on all fours. And what I'm doing, I'm straightening one leg, squeezing my glute muscle, whilst simultaneously lifting my arm with the thumb up. And essentially what I'm doing, I'm alternating back and forth. I'll show you from the front here so you can get a different vantage point.
Yeah.
So my leg goes straight, my arm goes out. Now, some people with shoulder issues, they might not be able to go in front. They will have to go out to the side because they have rounded shoulders. For some people, this might be very, very challenging. And for them, they'll want to start by just lifting a knee and lifting a hand and stabilizing and working with that. It seems pretty basic, but again, if you're starting where you're at, some people need to regress further. Now, everybody's heard of a plank. A lot of people do planks incorrectly. I'll show like a very beginner plank as well as kind of a plank for someone who has a baseline core strength. So if you're starting out with the plank, you want to do so from your knees. Okay, so you shorten the lever length. So I'm going to set up here on my knees.
Yeah,
as well as
need to go a little bit backwards there, Miles. There you go.
This is good?
Yeah.
Perfect. Good. So I'm going to be on my knees and on my forearms.
Yeah.
I'm going to go into this position. Now, what's key here is the lower back. You actually want to squeeze your abs so that you tuck the tail under.
Right.
This is what protects your spine and actually engages your core. So you could hold this, for example, for 20 to 30 seconds to start.
Yeah.
But if you have a good level of baseline core strength, you could go up on the toes.
Yes.
And keep everything strong from this position. The last thing I'll just go over is the hip stretch. I'll just grab here my trusty mat. So for the hip stretch, I'll demonstrate from the side. Very straightforward, very simple. Okay, I'm going to be in a split kneeling position. I'm going to move forward with a horizontal translation, finding a stretch. And from there, I'm going to reach away to the other side. You'll feel a big stretch through the hip. This one is great for lengthening the spine, stretching out your hips, loosening everything up. Of course, you would do both sides. You'd hold for 20 to 30 seconds.
Yeah.
But those are 4 fundamental movements that anybody can do, regardless of whether you're 8 or 80 years old. And less is more. It's about keeping it simple.
But Miles, so just on the plank, let's say I've never done it before. I do it on my knees. Can I do 10 seconds?
If 10 seconds is where you're at, that's where you would start. Some people think that, oh, if I can't do it for a certain amount of time, it's not worth doing it.
Yeah.
My philosophy is always start where you're at. That's what's key.
Okay. Great. Good. Thank you for that. That's very, very useful. And I think the demonstration is great. Anything else, Miles, before we close this off? Anything else that you want to talk about or you think is important or anything about Miles Fit that we should be aware of?
Yeah, well, so many people right now, we're on Zoom at the moment,
Yeah.
and so many businesses have started shifting components and elements of their companies online to keep in operation, keep things moving. And MilesFit has done the same thing. We are a private personal train studio, so we only focus on individualized fitness. We deal with all types of goals, from weight loss to postural correction to dealing with pain like herniated disc, knee issues, shoulder issues, stuff like that. But we've been shifting our whole business online,
Right.
and the feedback has been amazing. A lot of people had preconceived notions about doing fitness online,
Yeah.
that it wasn't the same thing as in person. But there's two things that are true, whether it's online or in person. Number one, accountability. You show up to your appointment. And number two, your coach can see you and give you feedback and guide you, which is really important versus just watching a YouTube video and following along to a workout. Even myself, I catch myself using bad posture if I
Yeah.
saw myself in the mirror. So everybody needs that. So essentially now we have services online. We're doing private one-on-one training for individuals and families through Zoom. And we've even started to dip our toes in the water of doing corporate virtual training for companies, for employees. Yeah, it's been an interesting change of pace, but a fun one and
Yeah,
innovative.
and it's great because, in a conversation I had recently on video, we were talking about businesses really needing to move to digital and to move to e-commerce. So I think you're showing a great example of how a service business, you're not a product business, a service business can quickly move from face to face to a digital and even an e-commerce arrangement. And obviously we'll have the details of Miles Fit in the credits. Miles, thank you very much for taking the time this afternoon. As always, fun, enlightening. So I hope people will enjoy. Thank you very much. And I'll see you soon on Zoom.
My pleasure. Thank you, Vince.
Thanks, Miles.